Alright, here we go. It's your boy, Gibraltar Productions, I suppose. Today we're going to be reviewing the Oxford Book of American Short Stories. I'm going to try to keep this one quick for my annual upload. I guess I'm dipping into booktube territory nowadays. Alright, so, okay, let's get into it. So, basically, it's a collection of short stories based upon the premise of, let's get into the introduction. It's based upon the premise, familiar titles, or familiar names, unfamiliar titles. That is, authors that you're going to know, titles, not so much. Basically, it's 59 short stories, starting all American, okay, gotta find the, start with Washington, Irving. You go all the way through Poe, Clemens, Twain, James, and even through some more, basically, and you also go through all the way to the modern day, pretty much, with modern authors like DFW, David Foster Wallace, Ms. Lahiri, and Junot Diaz. And you go all the way through authors that are known to the American canon, but are considered, they're considered, I don't know, perhaps insular is the word. You've got Lovecraft, who's just, I guess, proto-sci-fi. You wouldn't really consider him truly part of the canon, I suppose, but you've got The Rats on the Wall. And basically, I would say that a lot of the value you get from this, really, I think that, I guess I'll just start off on the, my opinion with no, we'll save that for the end. But basically, you've got, I think it's really important to read the introduction when you're done, because, you gotta revisit it a few times, I think. But I think that the introduction by Joyce Carol Oates, who's the editor, I think is very important to understanding kind of what the short story means, and kind of the whole point of this, this collection. And essentially, I think it kind of is based around this idea, perhaps, of you have a singular, let's find the quote from Poe, or the idea from Poe, that, where is it? Got the idea that, alright, here it is. In Poe's somewhat Aristotelian terms, the secret of the short story is of the short story's composition is its unity. And I think basically it's that you have one idea. You have a single story, essentially. You have a single point. And I think that's an important point to make. I'm sorry, I definitely shouldn't make any book content, but any more of that at least. But basically, I think Joyce Carol Oates is in this introduction, I think she outlines the idea of why the short story, I guess, matters, in a sense that you would want to read more than just the strict dogmatic canon. And I think that her point is to kind of elevate the short story to the status similar to that of the novel, or with any other form, many other forms of literature, where you can kind of explore it in ways that are beyond just the canon and what is modern, what's coming out of the New Yorker and other such modern publications. And I think the way she I don't want to say wonderfully, because I do have some critiques of this, but from my layman's terms, but I think that she really highlights, especially in the earlier times, that in the earlier works that are pre-canon, or that are definitely from authors in the canon, I think all the way until William Carlos Williams, all these stories are phenomenal, and they offer a different perspective. Now, I will admit that a lot of these authors, even the ones that are famous, I haven't read the main canonical, my apologies, the main canonical works of them. Of course, you've got, like, you know, Henry James. I've never read any Henry James. I've never read The Jumping Frog of Calabasas County. Have read Mark Twain, but, or have read Huckleberry Finn, but that's besides the point. In any case, I think that, especially in the first 280, well, she doesn't want you to read it in order, but in the first 280 pages, up through maybe the 19... I'm not even going to try with that. All the way up until, you know, maybe the 20th century, maybe until like the 1920s, I guess, you have this really, maybe even further beyond that, I should say, but really up until, I think it really only starts to get, I don't want to say an issue, but it really starts to get kind of wonky, I guess, when you get into the truly modern. But I think there are some odd inclusions that are really kind of, and I think she does address that. There are some authors who are just naturally suited for other forms, and I think that their inclusion is still merited. Of course, you've got The Lottery by Ms. Shirley Jackson. You've got Battle Royal. You've got Old Sunny's Blues. And I think that's pretty much all that there's to say on that front. But, yeah. Okay, time to get into the opinion time, because I don't really know what I'm doing. So we're just going to... My apologies. Again, I'm an amateur. I always will be. Okay, would I recommend this? Ultimately, no. Even if... I think short story as a form still demands dogma, I think is what I would say about that. I think that there are ultimately some works in here that are not inviting to somebody who is not immersed in literary, both the that of modernity and of the canon. But I think that this collection does have a lot of merit. I think her essay is phenomenal. The introduction, I think, is, honestly, I would have still paid the full, well, this besides the point, but I think the introductory essay is very good. I would pay for that all on itself for pretty much the same amount that I paid for this. But I think that ultimately, if you're just using this, I think if you're going to read this, you're going to want it like a lot of purpose. I would say you're going to want to kind of want to agree on a fundamental level with Oates' premise that you want. You have to. I think that to make that more succinct, you want to already be familiar with a lot of these stories before you're able to a lot of these you don't have to fully know, but a lot of these you are going to need to know to fully understand this. And I think that in a way this reminds me in a lot of ways as like a kind of a textbook in a sense. But in any case, it's still idiosyncratic in a way that I enjoy. And, there are a lot of very good moments in this, and I think that ultimately, I think there's, for short stories, I mean, if you just want to get, I think for short stories, there's a lot of other things out there, but I think if you want a very unique experience that is, for the idiosyncratic type, I'm going to go for this. Otherwise, just stick to the canon. Your O. Henrys, your O. Henrys, God, why am I blanking? Your Flannery O'Connors, your Washington Irving, and your Hawthorne and your Poe. But that's all I have for you today, and for my dedicated viewers, I'll see you in 8 months.